like the mic? Bonjour, Canawea. Can you guys hear me? Is it coming through the mic? Okay. It doesn't sound like it. My name is Zach LaFleur, and I'm the Economic Development Manager for Nipissing First Nation. Shimigwich for joining us tonight and taking part in this important discussion. Your input has been shaping our path forward exactly as it should. Our first engagement session, we introduced a potential site for a solar energy project in partnership with CarbonFree technology. I want to be very clear that the location was never a final decision. It was shared to start a conversation and to help us begin exploring where and how a project like this could happen with full transparency and community involvement from the very beginning. That sparked a strong response. Many of you expressed concerns about your hunt camps, wildlife travel corridors, food sovereignty, and spiritual and cultural importance of that area. Your feedback was brought directly to Chief and Council, who met shortly after the session. Based on that discussion and the strength of the input received, a decision was made that the site would not move forward. Since then, we've worked closely with CarbonFree to identify a new potential site, one that is approximately 400 acres in size, significantly reduced from the original 1,000 acre footprint. It is also the only other viable location that we could pursue at this time under the LT2 framework. That's why we're here tonight, to share that updated proposal and to listen to your feedback once again. Your input will be instrumental in determining whether this new site is appropriate and whether we will proceed further. For those who were not in attendance at the last session, the solar project is part of a provincial initiative called the Long-Term 2 Request for Proposals, which has been brought forward by the IESO, or the Independent Electricity System Operator. Over the next 10 years, Ontario is expected to face significant energy shortages due to rapid population growth, increased use of electric vehicles, and aging nuclear and gas-fired power plants. The LT2 is designed to bring new clean energy projects online, and importantly, it gives First Nations a chance to lead these projects. Over the past year, we've worked closely with CarbonFree, a Canadian company with extensive experience developing solar energy projects. But more than their track record, what stood out to us was how they approached our nation, with patience, with respect, and with a sincere effort to understand our long-term vision and values. They've walked our lands, they've met our staff, and committed to building this project in partnership, not just on paper, but in practice. If successful, this project has a potential to generate tens of millions of dollars in own-source revenue for Nipissing First Nation. It offers procurement opportunities for member-owned and nation-owned businesses, training and employment both during the construction and long-term operations of the project, and a majority ownership and control for Nipissing First Nation. One question that we heard after the last consultation was, why do this on our lands at all? And the truth is, we really don't have to. But this opportunity doesn't vanish if we walk away. Right now, groups like the Métis Nation of Ontario and the Algonquins of Ontario, neither of which have legitimate claims to our lands, are actively pursuing energy development projects within our traditional territory. They are being recognized and funded by the province in ways that directly threaten our governance, our rights, and our economic future. Clean energy projects developed in suitable areas under our nation's control ensure that jobs, benefits, and revenues stay within the community. The alternative is seeing these projects built on our treaty lands by outside groups with no connection to our people and no direct benefit to our nation. This is a generational opportunity for our nation. If we can agree on a suitable location, I'm confident that this project will bring lasting benefits to our people, socially, economically, and environmentally. At this time, I'd like to invite Louis Angel from CarbonFree Technology to walk us through tonight's presentation. He'll be reintroducing the opportunity and CarbonFree's background for those who weren't with us last time. He'll share some details about the newly proposed site, the environmental considerations, and the economic and long-term benefits that this project could provide for Nipissing First Nation. After the presentation, we'll open the floor up for your questions, comments, and concerns. Shimigwich again for being here tonight.
Thank you, Zach. Anin, hello. My name is Louis Angel. By way of introduction, I've been working at CarbonFree since the start of the year. I've been working in the solar industry for the past couple years. I was at a company called Jazz Solar before this that specialized in First Nations projects. We had been running construction projects and educational capacity building projects in parallel all over the province. So it's a new gig here at CarbonFree with large scale solar, but I work in stakeholder relations. So working with First Nations communities all the same, and looking to bring benefits and opportunities forth to these communities. So a little bit about CarbonFree. We've been in operation since 2006. We have developed 4 of the largest solar projects in the province. We had predominantly done commercial rooftop solar up until about 2017 when the feed-in tariff program dried up. At that point, we had turned our attention south to Chile, which had a similar government incentive program to develop solar. So we actually have an office in Toronto, which is our headquarters, and we also have an office in Santiago, Chile. We have developed 53 utility scale solar and battery projects there. We have developed over 400 megawatts in partnership with Indigenous communities in the province, and all of our projects have been financially successful, and we have great experience in the development and the operations of long-term, large-scale solar projects. So the partnership opportunity, this is what it looks like at a high level. It is a 50.1% equity stake owned by Nipissing First Nation, not just for this project, but for possible projects that follow. Generally, in our projects, we aim for a 10% investor return. I heard this morning that for this proposed project, we're looking a little higher, which is nice. Breaking down more benefits to the partnership, there is no at-risk capital until the lights are turned on for these projects. So CarbonFree will be completely funding the development of the project. So all the permitting work that goes into it, and financing Nipissing's equity stake until the lights are turned on, or as we like to call it, COD, commercial operation date, at which point Nipissing will be able to refinance the loans and be able to be full owners in the solar project if it comes to fruition. Furthermore, there's leasehold income available. So Zach just talked about 400 acres. CarbonFree is offered $1,000 an acre per year. So just for the solar project alone, if we do find 400 buildable acres, it would be $400,000 a year once the project is up and running. Community benefit agreement. So this could take a couple different forms depending on how we sell the power, who we sell the power to. But Zach had mentioned gunning for an LT2 contract from the IESO. So if people are not familiar, the IESO is the Independent Energy System Operator. They control the entire provincial grid and set electricity prices for Class A consumers. So just to reiterate, we have an issue. The demand for electricity shooting up, energy generation stagnant. So the ISO has launched a new procurement program called the long-term procurement. So there was LT1, which is all batteries, but now we're getting into LT2, which is the first of 4 rounds of procurement over the next 4 years or so to procure about 9 gigawatts of new electricity. And it's not just renewables. We are competing against wind and gas, biomass. So everyone across the province are gunning for these contracts. It's highly competitive. That just to say, what you see up on the screen, 10% of the equity of the project paid out as a development fee. It really depends. That's how it's going to look if we win an LT2 contract. If not, there would also be a community benefits agreement. It would just take a bit of a different form, and we'll get into that in a later slide. Furthermore, capacity building, job and training opportunities. So a project of this size would require somewhere up to 200,000 man hours. I know I had already been in contact with Thomas Lambert, Tom. He runs the employment and training department here at Nipissing. And so we're getting all on the same page and lining up people to be fully trained to meaningfully participate in the construction of this project. So why are we here? Why are we in Nipissing? Hello, hi, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Right. So to build this project will cost about $130 million. Generally speaking, we fund these projects with a 20 to 80% equity to debt split. So the 20% equity chunk comes out to 20% of 130. I'm not going to do that math right now, but the 50% equity check from Nipissing will be 50% of whatever the 20% of 130 is. So like the no at-risk capital until commercial operation date, it just means that CarbonFree is willing to finance Nipissing's share in the equity until the project has been completely de-risked, until the lights are actually turned on and everything is running. That is when Nipissing will be able to invest its own capital, and at that point there will be some level of risk. Although in solar it tends to be quite a low risk investment. You know, as long as the sun rises, if it doesn't, we have bigger problems. Yeah, so we have two different procurement streams. I had mentioned previously, we're at first going for an LT2 contract, a government contract. If that doesn't work out, there is a private procurement stream called a corporate power purchase agreement. So it's just another way to sell the power. It could be to any Class A consumer in the province. It can be to a sawmill or like whatever. We have a deal with Lactalis. They're a big dairy company in the province. So it could be anywhere, and it just opens up our options to where we can sell the power to. So why are we here? Well, there are three main reasons. One, there's grid capacity. Two, we're in compliance with the LT2 RFP rated criteria points. And number three, Zach had come to us with the land, and it's pretty suitable for solar. It's south facing and close to a transmission line. So the transmission line is a 115 kilovolt transmission line. I think it's L5H. That's the code for it. It has 60 megawatts of available generating capacity. So that's CarbonFree. Normally what we do is we look for transmission lines all over the province, transmission lines with capacity on them, and then we look for land close by. What's different about this project is that we had identified some grid capacity, but Nipissing First Nation with Zach and Cameron and the staff here had actually come to CarbonFree looking to establish a partnership. So it's something unique about this project and actually quite nice. The LT2 RFP needs a little bit of breaking down. So our project being located here, we would satisfy all the rated criteria points within the RFP. So what are rated criteria points? Rated criteria points effectively reduce your bid price. So when you want an LT2 contract, you submit a bid. You enter an auction to submit a bid. What price are you going to sell the electricity at? If you satisfy, there are actually 4 categories. So all 4 categories are being in partnership with a First Nation, being in partnership with a local First Nation, being located in the north, and then being located not on prime agriculturally zoned land. So we would satisfy all 4 categories. And when you submit a bid and you have all these checked off, your bid price is effectively reduced by 20%. There is actually monetary value to these rated criteria points. So for example, we submit a bid at $100 a megawatt. If we have all these checked off, it is effectively reduced by 20%. So the IESO would recognize the bid as $80, but we'd still get paid 100. So we were talking about a community benefit in the first slide, 10% of the equity. It's a bit of a 10% for 10% deal because, as you can see, well, as you may not be able to see because it is missing one of the rated criteria points, but being in partnership with the local First Nation satisfies half of the rated criteria points, which means it effectively reduces our bid price by 10% just being in partnership with Nipissing First Nation. So that is the 10% for 10% deal. We will get into a little bit more detail about that. Don't worry. So anyways, why are we here? There's grid capacity. We're in compliance with all the rules. Our bid price is going to be more competitive. And there's land available. So I'm going to pass this on to Zach. talk about the land.
So as I mentioned earlier, right now we were looking at all sorts of land that are kind of part of our unsold surrendered lands. We've spoken with ISK, and they've stated that at this time, Nipissing First Nation can't lease out those lands until it's returned through the ATR process. So what we did was when we went to CarbonFree, we started looking at our corporately held lands. So that's what you're seeing here in the green box. So that area Nipissing purchased in 1997, and we have every right to lease out that area. So once again, this is just a proposal. We want to get your feedback on it. But for the first window of this LT2 process, this is essentially the area that we're looking at to develop. Now, each one of these blocks is about 300 acres, so that leaves you with 900. I mentioned earlier that it's a 400-acre project, so not the entire block would be developed, essentially. It would be within that area. So I think that's pretty well it for that. And because of that, I should mention, so the first project that we were proposed was in the, I think, 120, 150 megawatt range. With this reduced size, we're looking at 85 megawatts, so it is a smaller project, but the benefits to the First Nation are definitely still tangible. Like it's a great opportunity for us to pursue if we can come into agreement on if this location would be suitable. So, does anyone have any questions at this point, or we're going to open the floor up after the presentation as well. So just for a reference point, want to go back to the previous slide? And I guess it's hard to see because the projector, but you can see this faint green line that leads up to the dark green. That's Mukwamikan. No. So it would be in behind Christine Lane. So you can see here we've identified Bocage Park. So it's north of that area. So yeah, essentially it's 3 or 4 kilometers north of Christine Lane. Yeah, like directly north of Christine Lane. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So just to make sure that we're thinking of the same area here, you're right. We did drive by Peter's camp. That's still on our reserve proper. That's not actually on the corporately held lands that we're looking at here. So you're probably looking about 1.5 kilometers north of where Peter's spot is. So that was identified when we went up there for sure. So yeah. So what I can do too is I can actually print these out and you guys can all leave with a copy. Just that way you can make a little bit more sense of that. I know that the projector is not as bright as I'd like it to be, and in general, it's hard to kind of make sense of it when you're looking at a map. So, what's the green road? Oh, that's not a road. So that's the 115 kilovolt transmission line that we're talking about. So that's the line that we're looking to tap into there. So you guys might know the area based on that, because I'm sure when you drive up Mukwamikan, you see the first transmission line and then the second. So that's the 115. The 230 is actually further north. With this smaller project, we'd be going after the 115, so the first transmission line. The first hydro line, yes. Down here is Bocage Park, just kind of as a place marker, so you can see where in the nation we're referring to. But I will print out a map for everyone so you guys can see it in more detail. I might actually just go do that right now. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So what I can do is I'll pass it back over to Lewis, and I'll go print out some maps in my office and bring them back for you guys to look at. Okay. Of course. Yeah. And I'll kind of expand it so you can actually see more markers and things like that and make better sense of it. So yeah, this really is just the assessment that Hatch did. So obviously when we're looking at bodies of water, there does need to be a 50-meter setback. So the area that we're looking at of 900 acres, we need to find 400 acres of developable land within this area that we're looking at here. So well, 1,000 meters is would be 1 kilometer, right? So 0.9 kilometers. Um, Go back to the first slide there, Lewis. Yeah. So you're probably looking at about 1 kilometer by maybe 1 1/3 north. Yes. Right. But can I just go grab the map and then we can show you, just because I have all these points kind of identified, and to yeah. Hmm. Okay. Right. Well, so that's certainly not our intention, and I am just kind of going off of the data that I have, and that's why this conversation is important, because when we look in that area, like I did see a point that identified your camp, and I will put that on a map so you can see in relation to what we're looking at here. I didn't see any information about burial grounds. If they're there, then maybe this isn't. Well, it's not a suitable site. Okay. Well, that's certainly an option, and that's why this engagement is important, right? Is to So that's what I'm kind of trying to get at. Is this currently is not reserved land? It's owned in fee simple. We purchased this land, so it's actually off of our reserve boundary. So when I get that map, I'll kind of identify where our reserve boundary ends. No, it's corporately owned. Nipissing purchased it in 1997. Yeah, I think that's going to help. Absolutely. Sorry, Rick. The road identified on it. Yeah, I will go work on that right now. Okay, I'll pass it off to you, Lewis. I'll be back in 2 minutes. I just need my laptop.
All right. We'll keep it going. Yes. Yes. Good question. Good question. What does prime agricultural mean? Prime agricultural is a zonal designation by a municipality. So technically, sorry, agricultural farmland? No. So it's funny how it works. There could be there soil classes. You could have really good soil, but it's not designated as prime ag. You could have terrible soil, but it's designated as prime ag. It's however the municipality has designated that zone. And that's what we go off of. So there are times where we're developing in an area with class 2 soil, and people will say, hey, this is class 2 soil. You can't develop here. And us as developers, we're like, you live in a unorganized territory. There's no municipality. This is not designated as prime agricultural land. Therefore, it's possible to build solar on it. Yeah. There are, sweeping surveys across the province to redesignate land right now. I forget the acronym, but anyways, I hope that answers your question. It's a designation by municipality. See, land is a very sensitive issue. And what's particular about this project is that we did not come to Nipissing with this land. Nipissing has come to us. So if you've noticed, I've handed the mic over to Zach every time land has been brought up. It's my job to explain what it is that we do. It's my job to tell you we know what we're doing. And it's my job to tell you how everything works. But this has been land that has been mulled over by the administration. Thoughts gone into it. We're receiving feedback. And it's kind of it's a game of ping pong right now. We're trying to figure it out. So not exactly a black and white answer there for you, but so I'll get to you in one sec. Yeah. To use already cleared lands. Yes. So that's what we look for normally. We'll find a transmission line, a big transmission line, lots of capacity, and then we'll find cleared land. Someone's farmers using it as pasture or hay fields. It's already been cleared, or like super young bush, something like that, and that's optimal, right? Because from an economic perspective, it brings our price down, like the price to build the system down, and from an environmental perspective, it's just less harmful. Yeah, so that's generally like what we look for. We like that. Yeah. So I appreciate the creativity behind that idea. The issue with it is to build a 80 megawatt solar farm that runs 100 meters deep, 10 kilometers wide. We'd have to string together quite a few parcels of crown land, because I think you're talking about this area specifically. Yeah, I mean, uh, right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate the comment. In all the system designs I've ever seen in my life, I've never seen like a long row. I think it has to do with the engineering as well as like the legal side behind taking up so many different parcels of land with such a skinny chunk. And I think I'll leave it at that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I understand. I completely understand. Yeah. Yeah. I'll leave it at I won't tell you yes, I won't tell you no, but I know if my engineer was here, he probably wouldn't love that idea. Okay, so the environmental stewardship. These projects require an exhaustive list of environmental permitting to be done. We undertake something called the renewable energy approval. This permit has a long list of environmental and archaeological surveys. You see some of it up on the screen: wetland studies, stormwater management, amphibian and bird, vegetation, archaeology work. The RIA takes about like a year and a half to do. This also includes community consultation, First Nations consultation. It is exhaustive and expensive. Some impacts during construction and operation. There actually is no or relatively little hazardous waste on solar sites. The only real hazardous waste you get is the oil found in the transformers, both in the inverter stations and at the substation. And it's no different than the corn oil you have in your transformers running along the distribution lines along the street. There's nothing that can leach out of the panels. There's no liquid. If one catches on fire, that's not great, but otherwise, you're not going to get any toxic material leaching from the panel. Everything's sealed in between two panes of glass, caulking, and steel frames. So in terms of the sound impact, we do sound studies, but generally speaking, you're unable to hear just about anything outside of a 400-meter radius from the substation. The substation is like a 1 acre plot, big piece of infrastructure that kicks up the voltage. So all the electricity gets fed into the substation at like 36.5 volts. Boom, gets kicked up to at what this will be 115 kilovolts. That makes noise. You are not able to hear anything outside of the 400-meter radius. So given where this project could be positioned, it would be nearly impossible to hear anything from this project. You see sheep. This is one of our projects in southwestern Ontario. Every single solar project that we're developing right now includes some form of agrivoltaics. Hands up if you've ever heard that word before. So it combines agriculture with photovoltaic. Photovoltaic is like the scientific way of saying solar, like photosynthesis, but it's photovoltaic. So instead of taking photons turning into oxygen, it's taking photons turning into electricity. Photovoltaic, agrivoltaics, combining agriculture and solar. So these are vegetation management contractors, sheep. They're quite good at their job. They don't chew on the wires. They don't climb anything. They're not as big as cows and won't bump into anything. And they do a great job in keeping the vegetation down. There's opportunity to seed. There's opportunity to seed the site with pollinators, like local flora. There are contracts available for that too, which is great, and that's to support honeybee production. But there are multiple. You can also sustain hay crops between panels, depending on the design of the system. I think for this specifically, it'd probably be tough on the shield, but it's highly possible a project here could sustain a herd of sheep. Yes. Yeah. So we are going to experiment with some cattle in northwestern Ontario, but generally speaking, cattle and solar don't get along so great. They bump into things. I don't know if anyone here has ever been a rancher or have handled cattle before, but they tend to break things. Yeah, horse. Horses I've actually never even heard of, come to think of it, but no, that's never been brought up either. So yeah, sheep are kind of right nice in the middle. They're not like goats. Goats will like climb stuff, chew on the wires, all that. So anyways, have we used sheep yet? Yeah. So yeah, that's a project. I think these are both taken from the same project, Southgate. If you search up Southgate Solar, it's in blanking. It's in southwestern Ontario. I forget the size of the herd, but I know I checked out a site in Rainy River, Ontario. It's probably like a 35 megawatt site over like 300 acres, and I think it's about 300 ewes. So anyways, pretty substantial herds, and there's for lack of a better word, slaughtering opportunity there for lamb. Yeah, so it's a good question. You know, you got heavy machinery, so the risks that come with that. There's yeah, I don't think anything too different from a solar project to you know, another large scale infrastructure project with heavy machinery. Yeah, yeah, right. Right. No, it's a totally fair point. There are risks. There are risks during construction. You know, the oversight during construction would need to be stringent, I suppose, especially in your experience. So, just to elaborate on the economic benefits for Nipissing, this is first and foremost a majority-owned entity by Nipissing First Nation. This is not just like a one-off project kind of thing. If we're able to find some lands here that goes through, win a contract, that could be the first of a few, a first of many, who knows. If we win an LT2 contract, we've been talking about this previously, the 10% for 10% trade-off. Do people want to hear more about that? People kind of get it, yeah? I want to hear more about that. Yeah. 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 So within the RFP, there are rated criteria points. If you get everything, it's 20% reduces your effective bid price. If I bid $100 per megawatt to sell to the ISO, they recognize it as 80. So, but we're still making 100. So the First Nations aspect of the rated criteria points is half. So being in partnership with Nipissing First Nation would effectively reduce our bid price by 10%. So we're returning back the benefit that the nation provides to us in full by providing 10% of the equity share over the first 5 years in guaranteed development fees. So, for example, if the equity check is $10 million for Nipissing, we would provide, CarbonFree would provide 2 separate loans. And just to reiterate, Nipissing would be able to refinance the loans to get like better interest rates, but CarbonFree is willing and able to offer loans at the point of COD just to finance Nipissing's equity stake until the project is up and running. So there are 2 loans. The first is the 10% loan. There's no interest. So $2 million would be loaned to Nipissing, and over the first 5 years of the project running, after first 5 years, the $2 million would be returned to Nipissing through development fees, in which Nipissing would be able to put that money back into the project to acquire the 10%, or they make the choice, no, you keep the 10%, we'll keep the $2 million. So more or less, it's 2 million just for signing on for the partnership. The remaining 40% of the equity, that would be loaned at a more standard, like 8.5% interest. Nipissing would be able to refinance that loan. But yeah, that's in a nutshell, the 10% equity share. No, it's farmland. Farmland is different than prime ag. Prime ag is a designation. Farmland is land that's being farmed. Yeah. So this didn't used to be a rule. This did not used to be a rule. A lot of people, when they hear solar, they get upset, especially in rural Ontario. I deal a lot with this because they see solar around their community, around their house that is on prime agricultural land, and it makes them upset. So this is a new rule. If any of your project is located on prime ag land, it's a non-starter. You may as well don't bid. So I don't know well if people can see the screen, but I do want to clarify that we had been talking about a target IRR, a target investor rate of return of 10%. On the screen, it says potentially $2 million and distributions a year. Correction, $1 million. So that's what Nipissing would be looking at with full 50% ownership of the project is about $1 million in distributions every single year. So after I think year 9 or 10, the equity check, the $10 million equity check that I gave, for example, would be fulfilled with the distributions, and every year after that would be gravy. So I will answer your question in 1 second. The LT2 contract, I don't think this has been mentioned before, 20 years. Solar systems designed to last 35. So all the financial modeling, all the loans, all the distributions, that has been geared towards the 20-year IESO LT2 contract, but the system can survive for 35 years. So we will be going for more contracts when it's time. And if that does happen, that's great, because that's just cherry on top. Everyone's already made their money back. We have 1 or 2 questions.
I'm sure the research has been done, but I don't know. I'd like to know. Are there similar projects on the same parallel? Because I read like Medicine Hat was not successful because they didn't have the solar generation or the sun that they needed to be sustainable. We're on the 79th parallel. Medicine Hat was on the 112th parallel. Like, are there similar solar farms at our, what would you say? You know, like, is it guaranteed success at this location because we don't have long days all year? Our winters are long. Are we going to be able to generate that power?
So there are 2 answers to that question. First, I can't think of any local, like, large-scale solar farms. I know I saw one driving up Highway 11 today. Wasn't too far away from North Bay. Answer number 2, yes, this has been modeled to be financially successful. We factor in weather, winters, snow, dusts. As long as the sun rises, it'll work out. And yeah, we do model environmental factors and latitude, longitude into the success of the projects. We would not be here if we weren't absolutely certain it would be a moneymaker. Right. Yeah, so I mean, we are fairly certain that this investment would return at about 10%. If we win a contract, then we go into detailed engineering. Things like environmental factors, would be hashed out to like an absolute T. But yeah, we've mapped out the entire province, and we know what the solar, the electricity production factor looks like across it all. So rest assured.
Yeah. Hi, I'm just curious what's the lifespan of a solar farm and what happens to all the stuff after?
Yeah. Good question. 35 years. It can last for 35 years. Full production. Decommissioning. Everything that can be recycled will be recycled. Stuff like steel, all the posts, copper, aluminum, high value. That's quite easily recycled. We are coming to a time where a lot of solar projects are coming offline. So there is new demand for large scale solar equipment recycling infrastructure. Currently, as it stands, other than I think some plants in Texas, there isn't really a whole lot of infrastructure in Ontario to recycle basically all materials on a solar site. But we're going with the assumption that come 2068, there will be proper infrastructure to fully recycle everything you see on a solar farm. The land gets returned to as good as it can be. It's about as non-invasive as energy generation project gets. You know, this isn't a mining project. We really just bore holes in the earth, stick some steel posts in it, and then after 35 years, we take them out. There isn't much else to it. Right. It's a good question. So the owner and operator will be liable to take it down. There are several stages to ensure that this happens. Banks will not hand out loans. Or no, banks will be held liable to take these down. Within the RFP, there needs to be a separate fund allocated just for the decommissioning of the project. And there are legal obstacles keeping the scary idea of the operator just abandoning ship and the system being stuck there forever.
Of all Canadian land, that's all we got, and then it's just worrisome to me. We just experienced loss. So of course we are worried about it because, like you said, we end up with very little of the land in Canada. So, and why is that becoming so popular to? Like, did we approach you? Yeah. Okay. All right.
So I think you had said earlier that this is a $130 million project to fund, right? Yep. And then for some reason, I'm remembering $1 million profit yearly. So what does that mean? What's the difference between distributions and profit? Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we're losing a lot of money if it's, we're paying $130 million to build this and we're only getting a return of $1 million a year. Like, the math doesn't.
Yeah, so an important detail you missed is Nipissing is not paying $130 million. Neither is CarbonFree. The project is financed 80% by debt and 20% by equity. So to fund the project, CarbonFree would pay out of pocket 10% of 130, so 13 million. Nipissing would be paying out of pocket 10% of 130, 13 million. The difference between distribution and profit, distribution you're making every year. As long as the sun rises, you're making distributions. Profit, that's only after your $13 million investment check has been reached from the distributions. Everything after that, that's profit. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think did I accidentally click this with my thumb?
You're more than welcome to ask me. But I want to reiterate that just as the last discussion that we had, this is a proposed site. If there are areas that are going to impact our harvesters, that will go back to Chief and Council. If it's not a suitable site, then maybe it's not something we pursue for this window. Maybe we look at other windows of opportunity, right? I know that it is a little bit of a time crunch. October 16th is kind of right around the corner. And that's not something we've dictated. That's something that, the Ontario government has kind of put in front of us. So that's why feedback is important, and you guys attending these consultations is so important. So, Miigwech again.
So the lot that's proposed in here,
Yes.
and it's strictly a suggestion, right? This is not what we're saying. This is not where it's going.
Right.
We're still talking about this, right? So before we get too far into the weeds there, but this particular lot that's highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
So was this the lot that Nipissing First Nation actually purchased years
correct.
back?
Yes.
So
we
this
own it.
was actually private property before?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
We
So
purchased it in 1997. It's corporate.
Yeah. So there was not a whole lot happening in that particular area.
From the data that I have, it didn't seem so. Ryan made some points that there might be some camps there that maybe we don't have in our database.
Yeah,
Maybe
they might be new camps. I don't know.
could
But
be.
if we just purchased it like in 1992,
97.
97, so it's not like it's not like a family traditional camp that's been there for,
That's correct. Yes.
yeah, okay. It is? Well, that's correct. And we certainly don't want to upset anybody's harvesting practices. That's not what this is about. And, we do have, if this isn't going to be a suitable location, there's other opportunities that we have that where we could even look at purchasing land specifically for this. And, it's just, we're looking for something that is going to be the most suitable. And I think given that we have the Trans-Canada Highway that's there, and the two power lines that are going to be running right through our territory, it seems like a pretty good, like if we could find something within that area, it would save us a lot of money. So, and if we can have it within an area that we already own, then that's going to be less money that the community is going to invest into this. However, we still have other options. This is not the only option. But that being said, this does fit in with a lot of good things in the community. It's we've already benefited for the last 15 years from solar. It's generated a lot of money for us already. Not even just the buildings, the NFN buildings that we have solar on those, but we also have money that's invested in solar projects that are outside of our territory. And they've been very, very lucrative for us. They brought in a lot of money, our own source revenue, and we've been able to do a lot of great things in the community with this money. We've all benefited from this already. And those are only projects that we're like small partners in. So
And this is a much
bigger, a larger scale. And what we're understanding is with the industry that's going to be going on and the power grid in the condition that it's in, we're already experiencing a lot of blackouts, brownouts, and the system that we have is currently overstressed because everything that we do these days, we're charging phones, charging cars. We have people that practically live every moment on batteries, right? So we've never relied on electrical power as much as we do now. So it's overstressed the grid, and they're encouraging projects like this to develop. And that's why in 2015, we were offered an opportunity to be a partner then, and we were like this close. And then the progressive conservative government, the provincial government said, we're going to cut this off. It's not the way to go. So now they're coming back and they're saying, we were wrong. This is the way to go. And now there's money that's out there. The projects are starting to pop up, and we're trying to be, because we already had a bid in before. Our sites were already, we had a wind farm as well, and those kind of things just kind of were put off. But we were still in the queue. We were still looked at as a good partner in all of this. So this opportunity came up, and also I want you to know that Nipissing First Nation, we have some really successful businesses in our community, and we see opportunities here for our own businesses to actually flourish from this. When we talk about building, like this, even the setting up of the solar farm, we have Beasing Power, and they're a huge procurement operation for Hydro One and the gas companies, TransCanada Gas. They do large purchasing for that industry. So we would want our procurement company to do all of that work for this particular project. So it'll help to bring costs down and generate even more money for our community. As well, we want to make sure that our community members are going to be employed on this project. So it's going to be, we're going to be looking for people of all the trades to be able to get this put up. And then we're talking about maintenance of it over the years, that, we need to make sure that we have the people that we could employ to generate income for as long as the project's there and as long as the sun shines, right? So, and this actually fits within our mandates when we talk about projects going forward and how we want to invest. We talked about, in the previous years, the previous councils talked about how we're going to invest, and we had to make sure that it was projects that were socially acceptable, those kinds of things. And green energy, you can't get anything more socially acceptable than a green energy project. So, and I know that if we don't take it, it's no big deal. Really, it is no big deal. I'm not saying we have to take this, but if we don't take it, we're not the only ones in line for this project, and somebody else will get it, and they're gonna make the money off it. But this is an opportunity for us to generate more income. We're talking about generating income for our community so that we can have better housing, better roads, better water, better infrastructure, those kinds of things. And the way that it's going with the government, we're not, they don't give us nearly enough as it is. So I think it's part of nation building. It's part of building up who we are. It's building up for the future of our nation, for generations to come. This is something that is not a flash in the pan. This is long-term financial investing.
So if I can just add add to that, as Lewis had mentioned, so there's 5 years of this procurement, right? So there's 5 years of this procurement that they're trying to do. This is year one. This is window one. So if this is something we're not prepared to move forward with, there should be other opportunities within the next 4 years. Yes. So I know it's a little bit of a time crunch. Like I said, like if the deadline is October 16th to register our bid. So if it's something that the community generally doesn't feel is suitable, then maybe it's something we explore in the second, third, or fourth window, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it's and not even just that, but like as Gamal Stevens said, there are a lot of people lined up for this opportunity. There's only so much capacity left in that line. So if a large project would get approved, then we might actually not have that opportunity in future windows because there's only so much capacity that can be added to that transmission line, right? So we have nothing on this scale. Like this would probably represent one of the largest investments that Nipissing First Nations has done. We do have other businesses. Nipissing Miller is profitable. It does bring in what was it last year, Jen, $2 million, $2.27 million. So we are looking at we have business partnerships that are doing quite well. This is just a little bit larger in size, right? So we've not explored something in renewable energy of this scale. We do have our solar holdings. Yeah. And that's the thing is like these power purchase agreements that the government provides for 20 years really de-risk the project. You know that you've secured that price from the government for 20 years, right? So when it comes to an investment, it is a lower risk investment, right? Than going after a casino or some other large development. So and if,
Anin Bojo, Zibi Kwen Dejnakaz, Beezing and Donjba. I agree with us having to maybe find some land for this project, and that this project does sound amazing for our future, and especially to sustain us as independent members to be that way. And I know that this block of land that you're talking about hasn't been part of our community for very long, but my son hasn't been part of this community for very long. And he's only been here for 15 years. And my son shot his first moose in that block. So that to him is a very special spot. That to me and my family is a very special spot. And now me and my family continue to go to this spot because of what it resonates to my son. Let's go back to that spot, Dad, where I shot my first moose. I know we're going to get another one. Let's go back. So like everybody else is saying, we have a hard time when it comes to the connection of our land because that's where our language comes from. That's where we come from. So I oppose us using our traditional lands. I think that we should buy land, buy a farm field somewhere. Absolutely. Let's do this, but buy a farm field if that's, what we're looking for is already clear cut and all this. There's a solar farm just outside of our community.
Right. Nope, I think that's a fair point. That's something we could definitely explore. Just wanted to clarify one thing is we couldn't purchase farmland because that's one of the criteria of this IESO bid is you can't take up agricultural lands for a solar project. But that doesn't mean we couldn't explore other parcels of land.
And I get that this is prime land. Well, yeah, we know that it's prime land. Our animals know that it's prime land. Our people know that it's prime land. And other people know that it's prime land. But this is our prime land. And if we don't save that for this generation, he might not be able to go to that spot and shoot a moose, or to harvest.
Sorry? I guess we're turning it into agricultural if we, right.
Yeah, I'm here to listen and to support. I'm not opposed, but I am opposed to the area that we're looking at and those areas back and up there. I'm newly back working in my community from, the Western world. And I am so honored and privileged to be working and being able to go and harvest medicines from these areas and learn about what this is to our community and that's deeply rooted, the time immemorial, we have been, here and using these municipal medicines and using these harvesting practices. And, those lands are just really hard to give up because they're prime land.
So just to clarify, you just said that we couldn't use farmland because it's agricultural. But when I asked earlier, it was discussed that farmland could be as long as it wasn't prime agricultural. And so not all zones are considered prime. But let's just hypothetically, let's say we went to Mike Stevens and said, you have all this land right beside Garden Village. Are you willing to sell to NFN? And this is what we would do with it.
So I think that's a fantastic idea. And I know we are kind of looking at different lands to purchase right now, but I will say that one wouldn't work specifically because it's way too far from the transmission line where Mike Stevens lives. Right. So you can, hypothetically, right? But running that evacuation line to the 115, it drives the cost up of the project, right? It makes it less competitive. That's more what I'm saying. You can, in theory, but it just wouldn't be a competitive project. Great.
Just to talk about the farmland, we all know there's a solar plant up here on Garden Village Road. Before that plant was there, I went to our chief, the chief at the time, I don't want to say her name, but I said we should buy that. That'd be the perfect place for a solar plant. And she said, no, we don't want to buy land to put a solar plant on. And then somebody else bought it and they put a solar plant on it, you know. We lost like how much money we lost over the years that it's been there now, you know. I'm sure if Kathy was the chief, she would have said, yeah, let's buy it. So,
There's
So-
certainly lots available around this area that we can certainly look at to purchase.
so why could they use farmland and not us?
So, Louis, do you want to speak about the history of that, not being able to use prime agricultural land, or how prime agricultural land gets evaluated?
If Nipissing was to purchase farmland within the Robinson Huron Treaty area that was not zoned prime agricultural, that's somewhat close to a transmission line with capacity on it, we're in the money. That's really it. Do people need another explanation on what prime ag means? People kind of get it. It's a designation from a municipality. It doesn't really matter what the actual land is. It's what the municipality has zoned it. If Nipissing finds land that is not zoned prime ag near a transmission line with capacity, you're in the money.
Are you saying we can buy it for solar farm? I'm missing the last part of what you're saying every time.
Yeah. So the land would need to be within the Robinson Huron Treaty area, and it would need to be within earshot of a transmission line with capacity.
Yeah.
If it is in unorganized territory, that's great. There's no such thing as prime agricultural land. If it's in a municipality, it needs to be zoned as anything but prime ag. Did I explain that okay?
I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't really make sense, you know. Why can't we can hunt on private property? We can build camps anywhere on Crown land, and yet we can't buy a farm to make a solar farm, you're saying. The one that's a solar farm here, I remember that being the big fields there. We used to hunt ducks up in the field there. And then they didn't take care of it, and the trees got about 4 or 5 feet high. And then all of a sudden, it's not a farm anymore because they didn't take care of it. You know, that doesn't make sense.
No, I'm not trying to say you can't buy anything. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying if it's within the RHT area, if it's within earshot of a transmission line, and if it's not zoned prime ag, boom, go for it.
And this picture,
Yeah.
that's considered 2 lots. We bought those 2 lots the first year I was on council. The federal government came here and said they got a deal for us. They want us to buy that land. They were $80,000 a lot. And I start talking about it, arguing that they're selling us our own land. One of the staff members told me, no, don't say nothing, Rick, just leave it. And then the guy said, we got to go make a phone call. He went out of the door and he came back in. And I think back now, he didn't have time to make a phone call. And he came in, he said, we're allowed to give you $20,000 per lot to buy that. And I took it. I was too young. I should have waited longer. You know, maybe we could have got more. But, you know, they were selling us their own land because they took that land for taxes. I said, any taxes that on land that's on ours should have been coming to us, not to the federal government or provincial government. You know, but then nobody agreed with me. So, but still. And that lot doesn't go right up to the hydro line. It stops before the hydro line. Yeah. Yeah, these ones here.
Yeah, but you can see there's a hydro line.
Yeah. Yeah, the lower one, they drive.
It's the 115, so it does
Yeah.
So here it's not the
Yeah.
230.
Yeah, it just touches the corner of this lot, because it's about a quarter mile to walk in there to those lots. Yeah,
It's long.
okay.
I think Councillor Yvette had a question.
Yeah, I had a question going back. When you were explaining about the target IRR, you said scratch the 2 million, it's $1 million. So we're not going to be making potentially 2 million, we'll be potentially making 1 million.
Yes, that's true. And distribution. Exactly. So, okay. You're asking why I said scratch 2 million?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're figuring things out very fast right now. Just this morning, this was a totally different project. This was going to be on the 230 kilovolt line that runs north that you see on your paper. Entirely different projects. Different size, different distributions, more money going in, more money coming out. So it is simply an error on my part to have missed that. So this is a new project on the 115 kilovolt line that passes through the southern bit of that parcel. So there's 2 parcels. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So we were looking at, yep. Some of those lots that you're looking at that run along that 230 kilovolt line are supposed to be returned to us. They're unsold surrendered lands, right? That's that 1995 agreement that Chief Stevens spoke to. So Ontario has given up those lands to Canada. Canada has yet to return them to us. So at this time, we do not have the ability to offer a lease on those other parcels of land. The only one that we really can look at are the ones that we've purchased and we hold with our corporation, which is the white one that we've identified there. There was another one, but it wasn't viable for a project like this. There's just too much wetlands. We purchased it, so that was when we purchased that in 1997. So yeah, and here we are still. Sorry, there's a question at the back as well, Jen.
If that land technically has been signed over and we're just waiting for it to be designated as reserved land,
Yeah.
could there not be an agreement made of some sort where we can use that land for this project? I know it's not a thing that happens in a day,
Right.
but I know when the lands were signed over to NFN on Highway 17, I was able to build my house before they were signed over. And it's probably a different agreement, but if you could just clarify that, it would be.
Yeah, so that is a possibility for sure. I don't think we'd have that agreement in place to go after this window. But if that's something we look at for second or third window, then it is a possibility. So bringing it further north, right? So we did have a site that was proposed on that 230 line. There was still some impacts to our harvesters there as well. So it's always going to be like an ongoing discussion to try and figure out if there's anything that would potentially work, where everyone would be happy. But I think it's something we can look at. We can also look at, other parcels that we could purchase that are outside of our territory. Like we're open to this, and this is why we want to have this type of engagement, right? So we had done the first engagement, a few weeks ago now. Pretty poor attendance. I'm really happy that people came out tonight, and this is the kind of back and forth that we want. So, miigwech for everyone showing up. Yes.
Is that close to what was proposed before, minus the one at the second hydro line?
So it's kind of in between and further to the east. So yeah, we had one that was abutting the 230 kilovolt line, and then another that was on the 115, but it was to the south of the 115. So if that helps, so I could maybe put that in a map too as well.
came down to choosing a piece of land in that proposed area, could it not be put out there with maybe 3 or 4 different sites as options for people to, I don't want to say vote on, because we know how expensive it is to vote on things, but to peruse and maybe choose the best option, or I don't know, put it out there rather than, oh, here's one for tonight. Okay, next consultation meeting, we'll have a different one.
Of course, and like that's something we would have worked towards doing. That's when we had that discussion with ISK, as I mentioned, about those unsold surrendered lands, and they said like at the current status, Canada holds them. They will be returned to Nipissing First Nation, but at this time, we don't have the ability to offer a lease on those lands. So that's why when I went back to the drawing board and looked at these commercially held lands, and there's very few of those that we actually have. So that's the reason why there was just this kind of block that's proposed. This is the only thing that'll work for window 1. There are other opportunities if we look at window 2 or window 3, right? So.
Doed morgen de dood. Heb je dat massage cause moest do them. I was thinking, listening, and I can hardly hear you so once in a while. I'm just thinking, it's going to take a lot of construction to prepare all that land up there. And all through there is beaver meadows, beaver ponds, and a lot of water. There's a lot of water up there because I trapped all through that area all my life. And there's a lot of moose trails that go through back and forth there. When you put in a development like that size, where is the moose going to go? They're going to go around? Are we going to say to the animals, so we're taking over here now? For me, as an Anishinaabe, we are protectors of our lands. We are protectors of our animals. We are protectors of water. We are protectors of the land that we inherited from our ancestors. And if that goes ahead, we're going to develop that area. Another 25 years from now, you're going to clear out another 400 acres, on and on and on. And, it's, I like the idea of buying a farm somewhere and putting those things over there. I don't think I'm going to benefit from no solar panel in my lifetime. Is the energy going to be sold somewhere else, like in Toronto somewhere?
So that's a question that came up in our first engagement. Yes, so it goes into the 115 kilovolt line. That travels to wherever the energy is needed. It's not going to stay locally. It's going to travel to wherever the demand is in Ontario.
But if we develop that area there, and there's going to be a lot of gravel going in there, and water flow is going to be changed forever and ever. It's going to be flowed everywhere else except the place where it's been flowing for thousands of years. So we're going to change all that for something that I don't know if I'll ever benefit from that. And I don't know, I'm not against development. I know it's going to happen, whether I like it or not, because I can see it happening now. And it's happening all around us. In fact, we're being called an urban community now because we're so close to the cities. But we've got lots of things to think about if we're going to go ahead with this. But for me, I would rather keep that land the way it is. And I speak for the animals and the water and all the life that's up there. If we're going to go in there and bulldoze everything, then I don't know who we are anymore then.
Let me quit for that, Peter. I appreciate it. And
Can I just say too, like, in addition to Peter, I lost a lot of sleep and I cried many tears over this. Because what he was saying about who we are will be lost in these kind of projects. I just think there's a better way, and I want my kids to grow up to be thinkers like our elders are and our ancestors. I don't want them to grow up in a world where we sell who we are. And when you just said that we don't even benefit, like, we're not even selling it to ourselves, we're not using it ourselves, we're selling it to somebody else. We don't even know. We're taking our land and putting a dollar sign on it. And I'm not okay with that.
Which, and I think it's pretty clear that there's some opposition to this lot. There's no question. So I think I'll have to get back to Chief and Council, and we'll have to look at areas we could purchase outside of our territory. I think that's pretty clear at this point, right? So, right. And that's a big thing too, is this economic resiliency, not having to rely on the government. Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. And there was another spot that we did identify, but because it falls within the municipality of West Nipissing, we didn't get their blessing in time, essentially, so we couldn't pursue that one for this window. There is the opportunity to pursue it for the second window if that's something the community is interested in. If they want to go the route of finding other lands to purchase, then that's the way we go. So, sorry. Well, it's us as a group, really, right? And then chief and council. Yeah, chief. Right. So we always try and gather this feedback that goes to chief and council. And, Mike, I think you have a question back there.
Looks like it's white out. Anin, Mike Sawyer, Dishnakaz, Nipsing Donjba, former Onkagima. Yeah, I totally agree. You guys have a tough decision to make, and we always talk about thinking about the future. The one thing our previous council thought about when we thought about the wind farms and the potential renewable energy that the world was shifting to was what's the potential loss in the equation within our logo of our nation? The land, the people, the future, the wind farms, the investments, that's after the future. So how do we not affect the first two was always our main goal, which is all our council's main goal. I'm totally for making revenues. That's how we become independent, an independent nation, sovereign nation. But in the opposite side of that, we just fought a land claim in 2013, and now we want to take away some of that land to make power to give back for, scratch it, 1 million per year of, is it the lifetime of the contract?
So right now, the power purchase agreement that would be provided would be 20 years.
Yeah.
I think we're quite confident that this project would run for at least 35.
35.
Right? But the 20 years is what the government's currently giving contracts out.
I totally agree.
And one thing I just want to add, not to cut you off. So there is the $1 million from operations, and then there's also this lease revenue as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and no, I'm totally for it. It just to me, I don't know. It's just probably me, the way I was raised. It's hard to lose land that we fought so hard for that they told us we could not leave without their permission. And now we're trying to get into this investment. I'm totally for it. But the deadlines always seem to stack up against our nations when it comes to this. I know we have other solar contracts throughout the Ontario province, which generates really good revenue. I'm still thinking that's a good course of action when we start to talk about that. And when we start to look at that, what really scares me out of all of this seems like a lot of land that we can harvest and gather all our medicines and our animals that give up their lives for us. We still haven't approved our citizenship law. That could be an influx of 10,000 people coming back to our nation. What are we at right now? 44?
3,400 to my knowledge, Chief.
34?
Correct, 3,400, yeah.
And we take away that acreage in that power line area. Where do our people go, right? Then we start looking into Jocko Point. That's another harvesting area. We're going to have a population equation to deal with too. It's just, I'm not opposed to it and I'm against it all in one, because I think these consultations we do have to hear from our members. I think, again, the deadline's against our leadership and our nation. I truly do commend Chief and Council for really listening to the people. I know there's strong sides on both sides, and I say miigwech to the staff for doing this and for him coming in to speak. So, yeah, I forgot his name, sorry.
Lewis.
Thank you, miigwech. But yeah, I just wanted to say that it's very unique situation. I don't want to rush this because a colonial deadline is telling me I got to give up my land and change it for them for 40 million, potential 35 million return.
Yeah, give or take, right?
Give or take. I don't know. It's hard. And
No, I really do understand
miigwech.
your position, and I think that's something that we need to bring back to Chief and Council and discuss how we're going to proceed further, and whether we look at another opportunity in the future or where we go from here, right? But that's why it's so important that you guys all came out and voiced your opinions. Miigwech, Glenna. Miigwech, Ryan.
Good night, Glenna.
Right.
It's okay. Just for everybody to remember one thing. Chief and Council are not in a hurry to do this. We want to make sure everybody's happy with it, or at least close to being happy about it. And if people are not satisfied with what we're doing, let us know. You can call the chief at any time in their office, or you can even talk to myself or Yvette or any one of the councillors who will listen to you. And as we're trying to push this, we're not trying to push this. It doesn't mean nothing to me whether we have it or not. It's something that the band members have to want before we do it, you know. And like Kathy says, we're not stuck on any area. Maybe it would be better, like what somebody said a while ago, was buy a piece of land somewhere,
Right.
and away from the First Nation. I tried that too, but we could try it again. Okay,
Something we
miigwech.
could investigate. Okay. We would need to buy land near the power line, absolutely. Yes. Otherwise, it's not economically viable. No, I don't think. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Okay. No, I think that's a valid point. Right. Mhm. The ATR process, like we have lands from '95 that still haven't been returned. Yeah. No. No, I think it's crazy when I look at that 1995 agreement for a lot of these lands that were shown here, and the fact that they still haven't been returned to us. Right. Like. Yeah. Right. No, and that's just it. And right now, with those corporately held lands, we are right. So no. Yeah. Well, I think someone made a comment like that at one point too. Is just looking forward to the future. There are other lands like say where our quarry is in 20, 30 years time when they've exhausted the gravel they could pull out of there. Maybe that's a spot, right? That's already kind of been disturbed. Mhm. So no, these are all good suggestions, and we appreciate them. And that's kind of our job here is to bring these opportunities forward, to hear your comments, your concerns, and then bring them back to council and figure out a path forward. So no, okay, yeah, that's just it. Yeah. So big wish for everyone for coming out tonight. At this time, I'd like to invite Miss Evelyn to close the meeting for us.
Miigwech, thanks for having me.